Kesariyom Shukalasodiripurnashindaram Shriman Nrsimha Guruvari Vivadabhyavringam Shriman Ananta Guruvari Sutang Gunadhim Sampat Kumar Guruvariyamaham Prabhati Usade Usarindevam Kamsicharurvardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagatgurum Gita Sugita Kartavya Kimanye Shastra Vistarehi Yaswayam Padmanabhasya Mukhabadma Vinisrita. Today's subject matter discussion is the 15th chapter. There are 20 shlokas with 3 subjects. The first subject is about Prakriti Purusha Viveka, already explained, and comparing the Jagat to a tree which has its roots upstairs and the leaves downstairs. So the entire samsara, meaning the life that we are running through, is compared to a Ashwatha Vriksha, a people tree, which is to be known by everybody for purposes of knowing God. And the second one, even the Muktatma is governed by the Paramatma for purposes of emancipation and freedom from the bondage of birth and death. The third chapter of this 15th Adhyaya tells us about the Purushottama Vidya, which is the Sambonam of the second Shatka, that is chapters 7 to 12. The 13th and 14th chapter is a clear explanation of the Prathama Shatka, that is first 6 chapters. And this 15th chapter is a summation of the second Shatka, chapter 6 to chapter 7 to 12. The last 6 chapters of the Gita, according to Ramanuja's commentary, reconsider the metaphysics of nature, the individual soul in God, and the philosophy of sadhana, both of which are the themes covered by the 12 chapters that have gone before. This reconsideration is for purposes of a clear determination of principles. The 13th chapter has discussed the individual self and nature. The 14th has carried forward the same matter and has discussed the manner of their association in detail and the one sovereign method of liberating the self from the bondage to matter. The 15th, this chapter, deals fully with the supreme reality and elucidates the nature of God. The last 3 chapters, meaning 16th, 17th, and 18th, supplement with some necessary and useful clarification the formulation of sadhana that has been effected in detail in the course of the first 2 groups of chapters. Under this scheme, the 15th chapter occupies a position of great importance. It gathers together the teachings of the text in chapters 7, 9, 10, and 11 on the nature of glory of the Supreme Being and lays down the philosophy of the Purushottama with wonderful brevity as well as profundity. It discharges the task of clarification in a masterly style and achieves beauty of utterance worthy of its high theme. It describes the twofold glory of God to be named Kshara and Akshara herein, and how he transcends both these on account of his freedom from all evil and possession of a nature altogether exalted and holy. With this consideration, its name is Purushottama, or it names him Purushottama. With a view to introduce the Akshara, which means the emancipated soul, the system of material existence from which it is emancipated through the weapon of non attachment is taken up for presentation. The world in which the bound soul moves from birth to birth in its career of evil and suffering is pictured as the Ashwatha tree. Its roots are above and its branches hang downwards. The significance of this is that it is a creation of the Creator God, Chaturmukha, the highest of created beings, and all the other beings fashioned by Him are of lower levels of creation. This tree is fairly permanent, for it exists as an unbroken stream of existence till the rise of enlightenment from which comes non attachment. Of this tree, the Vedas are said to be the leaves. Just as a tree grows through leaves, the life in this world is fostered by the desire, prompted action, the manner of whose efficacious performance is prescribed by sections of the Vedas. He who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas, or the Veda in their final import teach the method of cutting down this tree, and a knowledge of what is to be thus destroyed is a necessary preliminary to the final import. Among the branches hanging down, some spread upwards and some spread downwards. They are the various higher and lower kinds of creatures. These branches are nourished by the gunas, the primary qualities of Prakriti. They are made attractive by tender leaves of the nature of the sense objects. In other words, these stations in the world of creation tempt souls by the prospect of enjoyment they hold forth. The branch of the nature, the world of men, sends forth roots downwards also in the form of karma. That means that human life specializes in providing a scope for the putting forth the fresh karma, which acts as a root for the life of transmigration. These new roots originate the different higher and lower reincarnations. This tree is not understood comprehensively in all its aspects. How this tree comes to an end is not understood. Its beginning is also not understood. That it starts with involvement in the gunas, and that it is cut down by non attachment to the gunas is not discovered. That this life rests finally on ignorance, on not understanding the distinction between the self and the non self is not grasped. This tree, which is deep rooted as well as many rooted, must be cut down by the weapon of non attachment, and then the goal, after reaching which there is no return to this career of bondage, must be sought after. How is this attachment and its cause, wrong understanding, which are both beginningless, to be eliminated? The method is specified. It is the same that was prescribed in the seventh chapter for conquering Maya, and prescribed again in the 14th chapter for transcending the rule of the gunas. The Supreme One, who is the cause and foundation of our existence, must be approached, and to him the aspirant must surrender himself, for he is the starting point of even this aspect of creation which binds the soul in the meshes of the gunas. He must be approached as refuge, for Through such surrender, the ancient devotees also who achieved liberation reached their goal. Such is the ancient tradition concerning liberation. When devotees surrender thus to the Supreme One, they acquire great virtues. They will be free from the delusion of identity with the body. They escape the great fault of attachment to the pleasures born of the gunas. They are ever established in the knowledge of the Atman. Their desires cease. They are not bound by the duality of pleasure and pain. They comprehend the distinction between the self and non self. They attain the eternal nature of the self as characterized by boundless knowledge. Those who adopt the path of surrender progress thus towards their final goal through the grace of God, and the path is also easy and smooth for them. The light of knowledge that belongs to the self inherently is supreme. It is not illumined by the sun, moon, and fire. The external and physical lights are mere aids to remove the obstruction to the communion between the eye and the visual object. This inherent light of knowledge is revealed only by yoga, and the obstruction to its manifestation is the past karma. The obstruction is removable by the surrender to God and by the consequences of that surrender, such as non attachment. The supreme illumination of the self is a part of God's glory. The individual self is the eternal part of God, and is the jiva in the world of jivas, covered up by the ignorance and the form of beginningless karma. In the state of such bondage, he drags with him the five senses and the mind which are located in the body, just as air carries odor from place to place. The jiva, while passing from one body to another, carries with him the senses along with the subtle parts and the elements being their lord. The senses are the organs of hearing, seeing, touch, taste, and smell. He presides over these, and the mind, and through them experiences their respective objects, such as sound. The ignorant do not see him while he leaves the body, or while he lives in the body, or while he enjoys the products of the gunas, for he is mixed up with the body governed by the gunas. But the enlightened set him with the eye of knowledge. His transcendent nature is missed by the ignorant, but is clearly discerned by the enlightenment. Those who, after surrender to God, practice the disciplines beginning with Karma Yoga, and whose minds are thus purified, see the Atman through the eye of contemplation, who, though dwelling in the body, is fundamentally other than the body in his essential nature. But some, in spite of their endeavor, do not see the Atman, for their minds are not cultured through self surrender to God. So far, the self in its two states, that of freedom and bondage as constituting a glory of God, has been dealt with. Incidental to the treatment of freedom, the realm of bondage has been described through the picture of cosmic Ashwatha tree. That the transition from bondage to spiritual liberty is to be accomplished by the self surrender to the Supreme Being has been declared again. While dealing with the self's inherent power of knowledge, it has been named the Supreme Light, which it is said can be lighted up by neither the sun, nor moon, nor fire. Now, it is said that the brilliance of even physical light is a part of divine glory. The illumination characteristic of the sun, the moon, and the fire is also an aspect of God. The specific powers of the other elements also are aspects of God. God enters the earth and through it sustains all creatures on earth. He becomes the nectar like soma and nourishes all vegetation. He becomes the energy within the living body, and in the aid of the vital breath brings about the assimilation of the four kinds of food. In reality, he dwells in all beings as their inmost soul and maintains their specific powers. It is such immanence which lends to substance and power to the beings, and it is responsible for speaking of God as the call, God as the all. In all beings, he dwells in the center, in the heart, from which springs all thoughts and all other mental processes. From him proceed memory, knowledge, whether it arises from the senses, inference, scripture, or yoga and apohana, which means either termination of knowledge or ratiocination. He is the subject matter of all the Vedas. He brings out the fruition of the several modes of worship which is promised in the Vedas. He is, in fact, the only one who knows the import of the Vedas in its entirety. Whoever interprets the Vedas as signifying any import other than the teaching of God himself does not understand him. Sri Krishna sets forth the substance of all the Vedas according to Ramanuja in the following words. There are two persons in this world, Kshara and Akshara. All the living beings are Kshara. The unvarying one is called Akshara. The highest person is different from both, and he is called the Supreme Soul. He pervades the three worlds and maintains them. He, the undecaying overlord. Because I surpass Kshara and Akshara, I am celebrated both in the Veda and the Loka as Purushottama. The significant terms in the passage and the total import are to be interpreted. By Kshara is to be understood the individual souls caught up in the bonds of matter, which is subject to variation. The singular is used in a generic sense. By Akshara, we are to understand the souls that are emancipated from matter and therefore subsist in their unvarying essential character. The term Akshara is also used in the singular in a generic sense. The bound souls mixed with matter are characterized as perishable on account of the perishable character of their embodiment. The free souls enjoy their eternal and unvarying nature in fullness of manifestation, and hence they are characterized as imperishable. There is the highest Purusha or person who is other than these two persons. He is named the Supreme Atman in all the Vedas. By that very designation, his difference from the Kshara Purusha and even the Akshara Purusha is made known. How is this difference established? He pervades the three worlds, the world of matter, the world of finite selves in bondage, and the world of liberated selves as their inmost soul and maintains them in existence. Therefore, he must be construed as different from them as they are pervaded and maintained by him. The further reason for understanding him as different from them is that he is undecaying and is the Lord. Being undecaying, he must be differentiated from matter, which is subject to decay, from bound souls, which are mixed up with decaying matter, and the deviated souls, which in their previous condition of bondage are mixed up with the decaying matter. Similarly, he is the Lord of these three worlds, and hence also he must be understood as different from them. Sri Krishna teaches that he transcends both the Kshara and Akshara. Hence, he is celebrated as Purushottama, the highest person, both in the primary scriptures, the Vedas, and the Loka, the Smritis, which constitute secondary scriptures. Through the Smritis, the purport of the Vedas are intuited, and hence they are called here the Loka. Such is the significance of the passage according to Ramanuja. It gives utterance to the culminating metaphysical vision of the Gita, which is itself the distilled essence of the wisdom of the Vedas. He who understands God thus and does not confound him with the Kshara and Akshara in any way wins his grace greatly. The grace thus won by this understanding is equal to God's grace that would accrue to one if one understood all that was necessary for realizing God, and if one practiced all modes of worship necessary for realizing Him. The understanding the transcendent reality of the Purushottama is so precious an achievement. See, Krishna concludes the tribute to the knowledge of the Purushottama. The greatest secret has been imparted to you because you are sinless. Whatever intelligence has to be cultivated and whatever duty is to be fulfilled for attaining me should be taken as cultivated and fulfilled by one who understands this truth about the Purushottama. This understanding of the Purushottama, priest, is the intellectual understanding itself and not the direct vision of the Purushottama. The subject matter is so exalted that even the intellectual apprehension of it and not the intuitive experience constitutes the ekam of spiritual life. The consolate statement that the doctrinal gains for Ramanuja's system from the chapter may be attempted. 1. There is no hint in the chapter that the realm of transmigration, full of evil and suffering, represented by the Ashwatha tree, is an illusion. It may be ephemeral and insubstantial from the perspective of value, but not a single word occurs in the text pronouncing it illusory or unreal. Number 2. Nor is there an indication that the physical world consisting of elements and so on is a phenomenal construction not forming a part of ultimate reality. It is permeated and sustained by the Purushottama, and every specific part of it owes whatever power of substance and power it has to be immanence of the divine. There is no denial of it being, but only a denial of its independent being. The physical world is an authentic self revelation of God. The Jiva is declared to be an eternal part of God. Justifiability is the application of the concept of whole and part to the relation between God and the individual soul may need discussion. But the actual words of the text are very clear. The Jiva is an eternal part of God. There is no possibility of taking the Jiva as a separate and independent reality, nor as wholly identical with God. The Gita seems to favor the view of the Jiva as belonging to God in the intimate and organic way in which the part belongs to the whole. This is a more balanced appraisal of the ontological status of the individual than what we seem to have in the beginning of 13th chapter and the conclusion of the 15th chapter. While the first passage seems to identify the Kshetrajna with Ishvara, the second one speaks of Ishvara as Anya, as the other. The present proposition brings together those two statements and assimilates them into a fuller and a clear version of the situation. What the Akshar means can be settled in view of its classification as a Purusha and not any kind of material existence and its being surpassed and transcended by Purushottama and therefore no one with him. It is spirit and not the supreme spirit. It has a further characteristic that justifies the description of it as imperishable. Though it is finite spirit, it is not the nature of finite spirits subject to the transmigratory modifications of embodiment. Ramanuja identifies it with the finite spirit in its pure condition of freedom from transmigratory embodiment. The Purushottama surpasses it and he maintains it from within. He is said to be its Ishvara also. The distinction between the liberated and God and God's immanent maintenance of it are points of capital importance. The formulation of the nature of the Purushottama in the chapter is most significant. He is Ishvara. He is undecaying in a special sense. He pervades and maintains matter, the bound souls and the liberated souls as the supreme soul. He is the supreme personality, transcending all and holding all within the infinite range of his glory. He is neither impersonal nor identical with all, nor acosmic. While these are the definitive metaphysical teachings in the chapter, it is equally decisive to its prescription for the realization of the highest goal of life, eternal life in God. The Purushottama, from whom proceeds the entire world of finite realities, must be resorted to in devotional self surrender for redemption from the prison of samsara with its shackles of the gunas and the binding darkness of Maya. There is no other way to emancipation. Even the ancients who reached the summit of spiritual progress adopted only this great and pure method of advance. The indispensable, unfailing, and all sufficing technique of adopting God Himself as the means for reaching Him through absolute surrender of one's spiritual burdens and responsibilities to Him in humble and utter faith in His saving power and grace is announced again in the chapter, thus summing up the practical philosophy of the Gita in its entirety. Rasmandramarambham, Yadishekaramadhyamam, Lakshmi Vallabhaparyantam, Vande Guruvaramparam.